A husband and wife noticed their neighbors hastily packing and rushing from their houses. Bewildered, they stepped outside and saw everyone on the street running as if the end of the world had come. Jason still didn't know what was going on, but as a safety measure, he decided to take his family and leave town. Yet on the way, they saw something strange. The same neighbors who had fled were now coming back. Things grew even more alarming. Jason's family became nervous, and soon they were stuck in traffic. That was when they realized the only road out of the city had been sealed by the military. Helicopters hovered above, declaring that a sudden infection had broken out in the city and everyone must immediately return home. Jason then understood they were completely trapped. Suddenly, a massive rock-like object crashed from the sky, raising a huge cloud of dust. Moments later, 2 fighter jets roared overhead, heading straight toward the city. Everyone watched in horror as bombs began to fall. Beth, Jason's wife, instantly understood the truth. If they had followed orders and gone home, they would already be dead. The jets now turned toward the people fleeing on the road. That was when everyone finally realized the military wasn't saving them. It was wiping them out. Beth spotted a school on the hill and urgently told her family to run there. The jets began another round of bombing, but luckily they escaped the blast just in time. Panting and terrified, they reached the school and banged on the bunker door. As the roaring engines grew louder, the heavy door finally closed tight. What kind of virus could make the army act so brutally? Jason's family couldn't understand, but for now they had shelter. Inside the bunker, they found expired canned food, enough for 3 people for a while. But Beth's face turned pale. While shutting the door, her hand had been cut. What if she was infected? Still, it wasn't time to panic. Jason chained the door securely with iron links and decided they would stay hidden for some time. Life underground, however, was harsh. Every day was the same: stale food and muddy water from an old underground well. To kill time, they played cards and hide-and-seek. Isolated from the world, they felt as though they were living at the edge of time. Their daughter was the first to grow restless. "Papa, how long will we stay here?" she asked. Jason had no real answer. He only said, "When the virus is gone and the world is alive again, then we'll go outside." They never thought this waiting would stretch to 300 days. The little girl often peered out through a mirror fixed to the ventilation duct, but each time she saw only a burnt, lifeless world. Slowly, she began to believe they might truly be the last people alive. Beth comforted her gently, saying maybe her friends were hiding somewhere too. One day, the girl opened a tin can but found it empty, with a tiny hole in the back. Something had eaten the food. Beth checked the stock and found 12 cans gone, 2 weeks of supplies missing. Devastated, she guessed rats had sneaked in through the vent. Seeing his daughter's sadness, Jason said softly, "Don't worry about small things. If food runs out, I'll go above and find more." That night, while the girl played with her mother, a faint noise came from behind. A rat had crawled in again, trying to take another can. Angry, Jason grabbed a knife, ready to kill it, but the creature was too quick and darted toward the hole. Just as it was about to escape, Beth leapt forward and caught it, but before they could react, a sharp burning smell filled the bunker. The rat had toppled an oil lamp. The heat rose fast, and in moments the lamp exploded, spilling kerosene everywhere. Flames spread instantly. Beth tore down a curtain to smother the fire while Jason hauled water from a stone tap, desperately dousing the flames. After a fierce struggle, they finally extinguished it. When they turned around, their daughter was hiding under the bed, staring at the mirror. Smoke was pouring through the ventilation duct, threatening to expose their location. Jason whispered that maybe the darkness of night would conceal the smoke. The 3 stayed awake in silence and fear. Fortunately, nothing came that night. At dawn, Jason checked the mirror. It was coated with soot. The smoke had escaped, but now thick ash clung around the vent, perhaps helping to mask them. Still, they decided to clean it. Jason and Beth unchained the door, listened for danger, and cautiously stepped outside, leaving their daughter alone inside. Time passed, but they didn't return. Worried, the girl climbed onto a stool and looked through the reflector mirror. She saw her parents trying to hide the bunker's entrance, but in the distance, a black shadow slithered through the trees. Terrified, she shouted for her father to look behind him, but they were too far to hear. Panic seized her, and she rushed out. Yet once outside, her parents were gone. Trembling, she called out for them. Suddenly, two hands grabbed her. It was Jason and Beth. They hurried back underground. Jason reinforced the door with wooden planks and chains, then pressed his ear to the ground. Above, heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed. Something was searching for them. The girl began to sob, but Beth hushed her, whispering that any sound would doom them. Jason distracted her softly until she calmed, though Beth's eyes stayed fixed on the vent, fear tightening her breath. Then, a deafening crash shook the bunker. The footsteps grew louder until they stopped directly above. Sweat ran down Jason's forehead. Something was there. The iron door rattled violently as if struck by immense force. It knew they were inside. Each slam splintered the beams. The door wouldn't hold. Gathering her courage, Beth climbed the ladder, pressing her weight against the lid. But slowly it lifted, and through the gap, two glowing green eyes stared down. At that instant, Jason tore off a steel pipe and jammed it into the frame, forcing the door shut. The pressure vanished, and they secured the bunker once more. Though the footsteps faded, Jason's hands trembled uncontrollably. Now he knew, outside was not only filled with soldiers, but monsters. The family huddled near the stairs, weary and hopeless. Their refuge was exposed, another attack could come any time. And soon, the shelves began to shake, countless footsteps thundered above. Like a swarm, the creatures descended, launching a massive assault. This time the iron door buckled open. Dozens of glowing eyes filled the darkness. Jason's family stumbled back as the monsters closed in. Jason hurled the oil lamp and braced the door with a cabinet, but it wouldn't last. That's when their daughter spotted a small duct opening in the floor. Jason smashed it open, shoving Beth and the girl through. When he tried to follow, the passage trapped him. The monsters were seconds away. In desperation, Jason dislocated his arm and pulled free. Beth gripped him, straining to drag him in, but then, through the flames, a massive clawed foot crashed down and seized him. Jason screamed for Beth to protect their daughter before being dragged back into the bunker. Beth and the girl sprinted through the tunnels as Jason's struggle echoed behind them. She knew he was buying their lives with his own. They burst into the open only to find their path blocked by a massive concrete wall. A helicopter's spotlight swept over them, trapping them in its harsh glare. A heavy net dropped from above, entangling them both. Through the mesh, Beth saw dark figures with glowing green eyes approaching. But as they came closer, she realized they weren't monsters, they were soldiers in hazmat suits. The soldiers drew syringes and injected both of them in the neck. Black blood seeped out. Declaring them infected, the commander coldly ordered their execution. When the virus had first appeared, countless townspeople were already exposed. It was airborne, invisible, and unstoppable. The army's only method of control was ruthless extermination. Beth watched in horror as rifles aimed at her daughter. Rage surged through her veins, black lines crawling beneath her skin. But before she could react, a soldier's throat burst open in a spray of blood. Jason had returned, no longer human. His eyes glowed crimson, his strength monstrous. He tore through the soldiers with inhuman fury, but the barrage of bullets overwhelmed him. He fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Yet his sacrifice bought Beth and her daughter enough time to break free from the net. The soldiers scattered, searching frantically. Unaware that Beth herself had begun to mutate, she slaughtered several of them before being shot and crashing onto a car roof. Her daughter, hiding in the shadows, witnessed everything. Overcome with grief and rage, she too began to transform, her eyes darkening, veins turning black, and she lunged at a soldier with deadly force. But before she could strike, Beth stopped her. Even in her final moments, she refused to let her daughter become a monster. Slowly, the girl calmed, the darkness fading from her face. But the soldier she had attacked was already doomed, his suit torn, the virus seeping in. Jason, gravely wounded, turned his gaze toward his daughter, whispering a final goodbye before his eyes closed forever. Just then, another helicopter descended from the smoke-filled sky. Beth seized her daughter's hand and ran. They hid among heaps of wreckage until they discovered a hidden passage. A faint light flickered inside. A small boy, their old neighbor, appeared and led them to a concealed cellar beneath the ruins. There, dozens of survivors huddled together, pale and frightened. They had been living like ghosts, buried underground to escape both monsters and men. Jason's family had spent every day fleeing from horrors they thought were outside. But in truth, to the uninfected world, they were the monsters. And if you looked closely, you'd realize, they had always known it. That's why they warned their daughter never to lose her temper, because anger was the key that awakened the creature within.